On November 27, 1944, there is no roar of an approaching plane over London. No time for warning, not even a sound to signal what is coming. Then the ground shakes. The explosion has already struck before the roar of the weapon even reaches people's ears. The reason is simple and terrifying. The rocket is moving faster than the speed of sound. Just a few years earlier, such technology would have seemed like science fiction. Now it was raining down on European cities. But the V-2 ballistic missile was only part of a much bigger story. During World War II, German engineers created weapons that forever changed the face of warfare. Some were devastatingly effective. Others were technologically revolutionary, yet far too complex and expensive. Still others arrived too late to make any strategic difference. And one weapon the Allies feared most of all was never even built. This is the story of 10 German military technologies that left an impact long after the fall of the Third Reich. And the closer we get to number 1, the clearer a strange paradox becomes. Germany created some truly remarkable weapons, but it was this very obsession with technological perfection that often crippled its war machine. We begin with a weapon that Allied soldiers recognized almost instantly by its sound alone: the MG-42 machine gun. It entered service in 1942 as the successor to the more complex MG-34. German engineers sought a design that could be manufactured faster and cheaper without sacrificing combat effectiveness. What they created was a machine gun with a terrifying rate of fire. Depending on the configuration, it could unleash anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 rounds per minute. At that speed, individual gunshots blended into a single, continuous ripping sound. Yet the true strength of the MG-42 wasn't just its blistering rate of fire. Its design allowed for rapid barrel changes in the field. This was crucial, since sustained firing at such high rates would quickly overheat the barrel. The weapon became the backbone of German infantry tactics. Instead of the machine gun simply supporting infantry squads were built around the gun. In Normandy, Italy, and on the Eastern Front, its unmistakable buzz became a hallmark of battlefield terror. Remarkably, its story didn't end in 1945. The post-war MG3 retained much of the original design and went on to serve in armed forces around the world for decades. A single machine gun can hold down an entire sector. Our next weapon, however, could blanket a whole battlefield in a storm of explosions within seconds: the Nebelwerfer. Originally developed to deliver smoke screens and chemical weapons, it became infamous during the war as a devastating piece of rocket artillery. One of its most common variants fired a salvo of 6 rockets in rapid succession. It lacked the pinpoint precision of traditional artillery, but precision wasn't the goal. The objective was to saturate an entire area with high explosives in mere seconds. And the terrifying howl of the incoming rockets carried a psychological punch all its own. The Nebelwerfer did have one major flaw. Launching rockets generated massive clouds of smoke and dust that gave away its position. Crews had to relocate immediately before counter-battery fire rained down on them. Over time, Germany developed heavier variants with larger warheads. In doing so, rocket artillery established what would soon become standard military doctrine. Every individual shell doesn't need to be pinpoint accurate when dozens of rockets can blanket the target zone all at once. While German rocket artillery terrorized infantry, another gun became pure nightmare fuel for tank crews: the 88mm flak. Originally conceived as an anti-aircraft gun, its immense muzzle velocity also turned it into an exceptionally lethal anti-tank weapon. In North Africa, this capability was used with devastating effect. German forces concealed the guns in well-camouflaged positions and picked off British armor at ranges where the tanks couldn't even fire back. The 88 went down in history as one of the most iconic symbols of German artillery. Yet the war was making something else increasingly clear. The future also belonged to individual infantrymen, carrying unprecedented firepower. Enter the Sturmgewehr 44. Up to this point, infantry weapons were split between powerful full-size rifles and submachine guns, effective in close quarters, but utterly useless at longer ranges. German engineers looked for a middle ground. They designed an intermediate cartridge and paired it with a rifle capable of both semi-automatic and full-automatic fire. The result was one of history's very first true assault rifles. Feeding from a 30-round magazine, it packed enough punch for standard combat ranges while staying completely controllable under automatic fire. It arrived too late and in too few numbers to change the outcome of the war. But the concept survived. After 1945, the idea of an intermediate cartridge and an individual automatic weapon gradually became the global standard. The next machine, however, didn't fight in the trenches. It lurked beneath the waves. The German Type 7 submarine became the backbone of underwater warfare in the Atlantic. Germany realized it didn't need to destroy the British fleet in a traditional naval battle. It only had to sever the lifelines keeping Britain alive: food, fuel, ammunition, raw materials. All of it had to cross the Atlantic, and that's precisely where the U-boats were waiting. German command utilized so-called wolf-pack tactics. When a single U-boat spotted a convoy, the coordinates were relayed to other submarines, gathering them for a coordinated assault. At times, Allied shipping losses reached alarming levels, but technological warfare cuts both ways. Radar, sonar, aerial patrols, escort carriers, broken German codes, and better convoy organization gradually turned the tide. And German submariners paid a horrific price. Of the roughly 40,000 men who served in the U-boat force, around 30,000 never returned, one of the highest casualty rates of any major military branch in the war. While the Battle of the Atlantic raged beneath the surface, an aircraft appeared in the skies that looked as if it belonged to the next war: the Messerschmitt Me 262. Allied fighter pilots were used to dogfighting propeller-driven planes. Then they saw a propellerless machine streak away at mind-boggling speed. The Me-262 was the world's first operational jet fighter. Its top speed far surpassed most Allied piston engine fighters, and its four 30mm cannons made it devastatingly lethal against heavy bombers. On paper, it looked like a technological nightmare for the Allies. In practice, however, Germany was already losing the war. They were running out of fuel, trained pilots, spare parts, and precious time. The jet engines also suffered from an extremely short service life. Allied pilots soon discovered the jet's most vulnerable moments: takeoff and landing. Instead of trying to chase it at full throttle, they began ambushing it around German airfields. The Me-262 proved what the future of aviation looked like, but it also proved that groundbreaking technology alone cannot win a war. The next weapon had no pilot, no crew, and zero regard for who was caught underneath it: the V-1, the flying bomb. In June 1944, an unusual buzzing pulse echoed over England. It came from a relatively simple unmanned weapon packed with a massive payload of high explosives. For people on the ground, the most terrifying moment was when that buzzing suddenly stopped, because what followed was the dive. The V-1 relied on an automatic guidance system to steer toward a rough target area. Its precision was crude, but surgical accuracy wasn't the goal. Its purpose was terror, inflicting psychological and physical devastation on major cities. Thousands of these weapons were launched at Britain and later at Antwerp. Unlike Germany's next wonder weapon, the V-1 could still be intercepted. Fighters, anti-aircraft guns, and barrage balloons gradually formed an effective defense network. Some daring British pilots even managed to tip the flying bombs off course with their wingtips in midair. Yet soon, a weapon emerged against which, in 1944, virtually no defense existed. But before that came the armored behemoth that became one of the most mythologized tanks of World War II: the Tiger, the Panzer VI. Massive, heavily armored, and packing an 88mm gun, the Tiger could eliminate enemy tanks from extreme range. For Allied crews, facing one was pure terror. But the legend often glosses over the true cost. Weighing roughly 57 tons, the Tiger was complex to build, difficult to maintain, and a voracious drain on resources. Germany built only about 1,150 units of the initial model. By contrast, the Allies mass-produced tens of thousands of simpler, more reliable tanks. This was one of the great dilemmas of the German war industry. What matters more? A single exceptional machine or several good enough machines that can be easily manufactured, repaired, and replaced? The Tiger might win an individual duel, but wars aren't decided by duels alone. They're decided by factories, logistics, fuel, spare parts, and the ability to replace losses. And just as Germany began losing this industrial war, it developed a technology that would transform not only warfare, but the future of humanity, the V2. There's no siren to give advance warning, no fighter plane that can catch it, no anti-aircraft gun that can realistically intercept it on its descent. The rocket ascends high above the atmosphere and then plunges back to Earth at supersonic speed. It is the world's first operational long-range ballistic missile. The V2 carries roughly a 1-ton warhead. However, its accuracy is limited. As a battlefield weapon, it is enormously expensive compared to the destruction it causes. Yet, as a technological breakthrough, its impact is monumental. And behind this breakthrough lies one of the darkest chapters of the program. Mass production was moved underground, relying on forced labor in inhumane conditions. Thousands of prisoners perished during production, meaning this technological marvel came with a human cost long before the first rocket ever launched. After the war, the United States and the Soviet Union scrambled to secure German specialists, blueprints, and rockets. Wernher von Braun and key members of his team ended up in the United States. Decades later, von Braun helped develop the Saturn V, the rocket that took humans to the moon. A technology developed for war became one of the cornerstones of the space age. And now we come to the most controversial topic of all, the German nuclear program. Here, we must dispel a popular myth. Nazi Germany was never on the verge of building an atomic bomb. German scientists were indeed working on nuclear fission and reactor experiments. Among them was Werner Heisenberg, one of the most prominent physicists of the 20th century. Germany possessed immense scientific potential. That's why Allied fears were completely justified. They simply didn't know how far the enemy had progressed. Norwegian heavy water became a crucial piece in this race. The Norwegian resistance, backed by Britain, carried out a series of sabotage missions targeting its production and transport. But when the war ended and the Allies gained access to German laboratories, a surprising truth emerged. Germany was far further from an atomic bomb than Allied intelligence had feared. No operational nuclear reactor was ever built, nor did they possess the industrial infrastructure needed to produce sufficient weapons-grade material. There was no German equivalent to America's massive Manhattan Project. Ultimately, the German atomic bomb remained not an actual weapon, but a terrifying possibility the world dreaded. And it is that very fear that holds historical significance. It reveals just how dangerous uncertainty in wartime can be, especially when science moves faster than intelligence. 10 technologies, 10 different attempts to gain the upper hand. Yet when viewed together, an insight emerges that is far more compelling than the ranking itself. Germany had brilliant engineers. It produced a jet fighter, an operational ballistic missile, one of the most influential concepts for the assault rifle, exceptionally effective machine guns, artillery, tanks, and U-boats. And yet it lost the war. Why? Because war isn't an exhibition of technological masterpieces. Weapons must be manufactured, transported, fueled and armed, repaired, operated by well-trained crews and replaced when destroyed. While Germany poured vast resources into complex systems, the United States and the Soviet Union built industrial powerhouses capable of mass-producing arms on a scale Germany could never match. This gave rise to one of the great paradoxes of World War II. Certain German technologies were years ahead of their time. Yet Germany ran out of the time, resources, and industrial capacity needed to translate that edge into victory. The ramifications echoed far past 1945. Jet aircraft became the new standard. Ballistic missiles evolved into the deadliest weapons of the nuclear era. The concept of the assault rifle revolutionized modern infantry. Submarine warfare continued to advance, and rocket technology born under dictatorship and war ultimately paved the way for humanity to reach the stars. Yet, behind all the technical specs, there is one thing that must never be forgotten: the people. The soldiers sent to face these weapons. Civilians under falling rockets, sailors on sinking ships, crews inside burning tanks, and the forced laborers who paid with their lives to manufacture some of these technologies. And that leaves one final question. What was truly Nazi Germany's most dangerous weapon? The machine gun that controlled the battlefield, the U-boat that nearly cut off the Atlantic, the jet aircraft that revealed the future, the rocket against which there was no defense, or something entirely different? If you want to watch more documentary stories like this about the battles, weapons, and technologies that shaped world history, tap the videos appearing at the top of your screen. Perhaps the most dangerous weapon isn't a specific machine. Perhaps it's the moment when science, engineering talent, and human ingenuity are placed entirely in the service of a destructive ideology. Because World War II proved something that remains just as true today. Technology itself has no morals. It's up to people to decide how to use it. And sometimes the difference between a machine that carries humanity to the stars and one that destroys entire cities begins with the very same equations.